Will the conflict in Sudan come to an end anytime soon? For nearly 2 years, Sudan has been caught in a brutal power struggle between two military leaders, General Abdel Fattah al-Burhan and General Mohamed Hamdan Dagalo, who is widely known as Hemeti. But the conflict between these two men is just the tip of the iceberg. It is part of a much deeper, more intricate crisis that has plagued Sudan for decades. So, what exactly is the cause of this conflict? Who are the key players involved? And what are the international dimensions shaping its trajectory? Hello, and thanks for tuning in. My name is Simon Bayani, and on this channel, I explore African geopolitics, history, the economy, and more. To understand Sudan's current predicament, we must first examine the legacy of Omar al Bashir, Sudan's longest ruling leader. In 1989, al Bashir, a brigadier in the Sudanese army, seized power through a military coup, overthrowing the democratically elected government of Prime Minister Sadiq al-Mahdi. His ascent was backed by the National Islamic Front, an Islamist political faction that deeply influenced his policies. For 3 decades, al-Bashir ruled Sudan with an iron grip, using a combination of military force, political repression, and economic control. His government was notorious for human rights abuses, corruption, and the marginalization of non-Arab communities, particularly in Darfur, South Kordofan, and the Blue Nile regions. During the early 2000s, al-Bashir's administration faced a major crisis in Darfur, where a rebellion erupted against his government due to systemic discrimination and economic neglect. To quell the insurgency, al-Bashir relied on the Janjaweed militia, a brutal paramilitary force that would later evolve into the Rapid Support Forces, or the RSF, under Hemeti's leadership. The Janjaweed, armed and supported by the state, carried out widespread atrocities, including mass killings and displacement, leading to accusations of genocide and war crimes against al-Bashir by the International Criminal Court in 2009 and 2010. Meanwhile, Sudan's economy, heavily reliant on oil, suffered a massive blow when South Sudan seceded in 2011, taking with it nearly 75% of Sudan's oil reserves. This economic collapse, coupled with ongoing corruption, international sanctions, and mismanagement, led to worsening conditions for ordinary citizens, fostering widespread discontent. By 2018, Sudan was in deep crisis. Inflation skyrocketed, basic commodities became unaffordable, and years of repression had left the public exhausted. When protests erupted in late 2018 over rising bread and fuel prices, they quickly transformed into a nationwide movement demanding al-Bashir's resignation. The Sudanese Professionals Association, an organized civil society group, played a crucial role in leading these demonstrations. After months of relentless protests, on April 11, 2019, the military intervened, arresting al-Bashir and declaring an end to his rule. He was later sentenced to prison on corruption charges, but his fate remains uncertain due to ongoing instability. Following al-Bashir's removal, Sudan embarked on a fragile transition to civilian rule. A power-sharing agreement was brokered between the military and civilian leaders, forming the Transitional Sovereignty Council with General Abdel Fattah al-Burhan as chairman and Abdallah Hamdok as prime minister. However, tensions between the military and civilian factions remained high. General Burhan, as the head of the Sudanese Armed Forces, or the SAF, and Hemeti, as the leader of the RSF, maintained significant influence, often undermining civilian governance. Hemeti in particular leveraged his control over Sudan's gold mines and external connections, positioning himself as a key power broker. In October 2021, the military staged another coup, dissolving the civilian government and arresting Hamdok. Burhan and Hemeti initially presented a united front, but cracks soon emerged over the integration of the RSF into the regular army. Burhan wanted a swift unification under the Sudanese Armed Forces Command, whereas Hemeti resisted, fearing the loss of his autonomy and power. If you are enjoying this video, please help me out by clicking that like button and consider subscribing to the channel as well. Now moving on, by early 2023, negotiations over security sector reform reached a breaking point. In April 2023, open hostilities erupted between the SAF and the RSF, plunging Sudan into a full-blown conflict. The fighting quickly spread across major cities, including the capital Khartoum and other key regions. Burhan, as the country's de facto head of state, controls the official military and state institutions, while Hemeti commands the well-armed and battle-hardened RSF, which has a history of brutal counterinsurgency tactics. This rivalry has led to widespread destruction, civilian casualties, and an escalating humanitarian crisis. Sudan's strategic location and abundant natural resources have attracted the attention of various international actors, each pursuing distinct interests and in some cases supporting opposing factions. In a significant geopolitical maneuver, Sudan has agreed to allow Russia to establish a naval base on its Red Sea coast. This development, confirmed during a visit by Sudan's foreign minister to Moscow, provides Russia with a strategic foothold in Africa, potentially enhancing its influence over vital maritime routes. The legitimacy of Sudan's current government, however, raises questions about the binding nature of this agreement. The United Arab Emirates has also shown a vested interest in Sudan's ports, aiming to expand its strategic and economic influence in that region. This involvement underscores the broader competition among the Gulf states for access to critical infrastructure and trade routes in the Horn of Africa. Sharing deep historical and geographical ties with Sudan, Egypt has also been actively involved in this conflict. Reports indicate that Cairo has provided military support to the Sudanese army, including fighter jets and pilots, to counter the RSF. This intervention reflects Egypt's concern over regional stability and its desire to maintain a friendly government in Khartoum. Other countries such as Saudi Arabia, Iran, Qatar, Turkey, and Libya have also been implicated in the conflict, each seeking to safeguard their strategic and economic interests. The involvement of these nations has transformed Sudan into a complex arena of regional proxy battles, further complicating prospects for peace. As the conflict persists into its second year, the humanitarian situation has deteriorated markedly, especially in the latter part of 2024 and early 2025. Recent attacks by the RSF in White Nile State have resulted in significant civilian casualties. Reports indicate that over 200 individuals were killed in this three-day assault, with numerous more injured. These assaults have been characterized by executions, kidnappings, and widespread looting. The violence has led to a massive displacement crisis, with more than 12.5 million forced to flee their homes since 2023. In December 2024 alone, over 5,000 individuals crossed daily into South Sudan seeking refuge from the escalating hostilities. This influx placed immense strain on the neighboring countries, exacerbating humanitarian challenges already existing there. And the economic ramifications are equally severe. Sudan's GDP experienced a sharp contraction, with estimates indicating declines ranging from 18% to 37% in 2023, followed by further reductions in 2024. This economic downturn has severely impacted employment, income levels, and overall household welfare, deepening the crisis for the Sudanese populace. In response to the escalating needs, the UN came up with the 2025 Humanitarian Needs and Response Plan in December 2024, seeking $4.2 billion to assist over 20 million of the most vulnerable individuals. This plan aims to address critical issues such as food insecurity, malnutrition, and access to essential services. However, the success of this initiative heavily depends on the international community's continued commitment to providing immediate and flexible funding. Despite all efforts by humanitarian organizations, challenges persist due to ongoing violence, restricted access, and funding shortfalls. The situation remains dire, with a significant portion of the population in urgent need of assistance. The international community's sustained engagement and support are crucial to alleviating the suffering and addressing the profound humanitarian needs in Sudan. This conflict is a multifaceted crisis rooted in historical divisions, personal rivalries, and geopolitical ambitions. The power struggle between Generals Burhan and Hemeti has not only destabilized the nation, but also drawn in a multitude of international actors, each pursuing their own agenda. As the situation continues to evolve, the path to a peaceful resolution remains fraught with challenges, necessitating concerted efforts from both regional and global stakeholders to restore stability and address the profound humanitarian needs. Thanks once again for tuning in, and I will see you in the next video.